I am the Godless Engineer. You can find me on Facebook. I also have a website, godlessengineering.com, that has a list of my videos, blog posts, and whatnot. Just go to Facebook and type in Godless Engineer. You'll be able to find groups and pages and whatnot. And just go check me out. Hello. Tonight I am tackling the free will argument. And really, when I come into this free will argument, a lot of people have a trouble with defining like what free will is. A lot of people think that I just mean general decision-making skills, and that's not at all what it is. So, just as a definition, free will that I'm going to be attacking here tonight is the religious version of free will, which is like you're able to make any decision that you want to, regardless of your own personality, regardless of your upbringing, regardless of anything. You're just able to make whatever decision you want to. It doesn't matter. So, given that, I would say that free will is definitely an illusion. We obviously don't have the kind of free will that most Christians think that we do. Most of the time, they bring this up whenever you start talking about the evils of the world, or usually the argument where it gets brought up to me in is when I start talking about child molesters and rapists. Like if you have a devout child that lives a perfect Christian life following the Bible to the T, but yet they get raped, why is that part of God's good plan? Because as we know from Jeremiah 1:5, God points out that he knows a person from before they're born, according to the Bible. God knows like a person's entire future history before they're born. So God knows whether or not that kid is going to be raped or molested beforehand. Yet, he either plans for it to happen or he allows it to happen. Of course, the biggest or one of the arguments against me whenever I bring that up is free will. Like, oh, well, that's the rapist free will intervening on the child, and so that's why, free will, our sin in the Garden of Adam and Eve is or the Garden of Eden is why that kind of stuff happens. And they start going into a bunch more apologetics about how God doesn't want robots; He wants people to make a choice and all this other stuff. But it's all kind of bullcrap, because in Isaiah 45:7, God talks about how He creates good things and He creates bad things too. He creates the light and the dark. He does good things and He does evil things too. So even by their own dogma, God creates evil in the world. So I would say that God plans for a child to get raped or molested, and it's part of His quote-unquote good plan. So how can you really have this free will if God has already pre-planned your life and pre-planned your decisions? I mean, if it's all part of some grand master plan, that's what it would have to be. And so we wouldn't have any kind of free will. Now, given that I'm an atheist and, I don't lend any credence to the Bible, I'm not going to use the Bible verses in order to prove free will doesn't exist. I'm going to go by more of a scientific and evidence-based way about it. So I actually pull a lot of my opinions and whatnot from Sam Harris's book on free will, because he makes a lot of really good points in it. Like in this one particular study, machines were able to predict a person's choice nanoseconds before they actually made it. So his theory is that, on free will being an illusion, is that, our subconscious has actually already made the decision for us. There you go. Alice has it. Our subconscious has already made the decision for us. And so while we think that we're making the conscious decision to make that choice, we're actually not. Like our subconscious has already picked it, and uh, so I I think that it has a lot more to deal with who you are as a person, your genetic makeup, your environment. I think all of those things plays into a factor as to what decisions you're going to make throughout your life. And so I don't see free will as actually being a thing, because like instead of watching this particular podcast right now, why aren't you out, berating a homeless person and stealing their money? Or instead of helping somebody out, why didn't you just not help them out? Why didn't you beat them senseless? Why don't you do these things that just don't seem to go with your personality? If you really have that choice, well, why don't you do it? Well, you'll feel bad, or you have all these other reasons as to why you wouldn't make that choice. And can you really call it free will if you don't have like all of those choices that you can equally make, you know, like without any other influences affecting your decision? Uh, and how can you really call it free will if you don't have all those choices laid out in front of you for each decision that you're given? Um, so for like another good example is like psychopaths and sociopaths. Do you really think that a psychopath or a sociopath has the ability to be like, no, I don't want to kill this person? I guess that would be more of a psychopath. They take joy in causing harm to others and whatnot. So can you really expect a psychopath to not take joy in hurting somebody else? Or can you really ask a sociopath to actually have feelings about causing somebody else pain? Because that's what a psychopath means, or not psychopath, sociopath means, is that they don't have those same feelings that other people do. There's a problem with their brain chemistry that doesn't allow them to feel empathy and stuff like that for other people. So can you really force yourself to feel empathy? And I mean, I really don't think that you can. And I think that it would be a very dangerous experiment to try to make a sociopath feel empathy for somebody. But I think there have been studies out there done with sociopaths and doing that in a more safe, controlled environment. But I didn't get a chance to look those up. But anyways, so in conclusion, from a biblical standpoint, it's very confusing as to whether or not free will can exactly exist from a biblical standpoint. And then from a more science or evidentiary based standpoint, it really doesn't seem to exist, given that we can predict somebody else's actions, given the right equipment or the right background information. And can you really call it free will if you don't have all of the decisions that you could possibly make laid out before you, so that you can make an informed decision? So that's my bit about free will, and I think it might be Brendan next.
But before we do that, let me go ahead and recommend this book to you guys. Free Will by Sam Harris, the book that he was just talking about. It's an excellent book, and will provide more points for you. And all those studies that he talked about are listed in that book and referenced. Real quickly, shout out to all our viewers over on YouTube. And I had a couple things that I wanted to add to what you said. You mentioned Jeremiah 1 and 5, but there's also Romans 8 and 29, which is just one that I thought of off the top of my head, which says that those who God foreknew, he predestined. So basically, he knew everything before, and he made you how you are going to be. Therefore, you do not have free will. I also wanted to mention, because you brought up was Isaiah 45 and 7, I am God, I create good, I create evil. The Quran also says that Allah created evil. I thought of three off the top of my head where the Quran says that Allah created all things, and then I can't remember specifics. You should just be able to Google it. The source of good and evil is Allah. That's a verse. And also, there's another one that says something along the lines of creating evil is not evil, committing evil is evil. So, another, apologetic for evil. Real quickly, also, you have to ask, is sin a byproduct of free will? This free will that they're talking about. And if it is, then in heaven there will be no free will, which contradicts some of the verses in the Bible. Also, another question: does Satan have free will? If Satan has free will and he still knows that God exists and it does not impede his free will, then why can we not have free will? That's just a question that I thought of that is raised by the free will argument.